Hello and welcome to the 99th Monkey Liberty News, formerly known as the 50-cent tour of the day. Today is Thursday, October 31st, 2013, and our first look at the news for today is from Infowars.com. FCC prepares fairness doctrine for the internet. They're going to impose a control that is going to interfere with free markets. It won't be the news that people want to hear. I mean, that's become too much of a threat because people want to hear the truth, right? And the truth is very dangerous to some people. So this is being implemented. Government and Obama administration attempt to squelch political speech of their ideological enemies. Yeah. And from Public Citizen, Consumer Law and Policy blog, NSA compounds its assaults on privacy by attacking critical speech. And this article is about Dan McCall, a Minnesota man who creates politically relevant designs for imprinting on t-shirts, mugs, and other paraphernalia. And he messed around a little bit with the logo, the official seal of the National Security Agency and Department of Homeland Security, and they didn't like that, and they demanded of Zazzle, where he was selling his goods, that they not allow these designs anymore. And here's: Zazzle allows anybody to create designs for order by others. Each seller's designs are displayed on the seller's own virtual storefront within the Zazzle website. In McCall's case here, and you can click to see, the designs are then printed on particular items and mailed to consumers in response to specific orders. And Zazzle evidently began receiving letters from these organizations saying, take down the spying on you and homeland stupidity designs. So Zazzle removed another new design, and Zazzle is complying with this. He is still selling his t-shirts, by the way. You can find his website online. Here, the Wall Street Journal has an article: Facebook tests software to track your cursor on screen. I feel like they're already doing this, and I'm very aware of this. Honestly, when I use Facebook, I have my laptop camera too, and I don't cover it up. A lot of people put a piece of tape or something over it. I don't do that, but because I don't, I'm actually careful and aware of where I focus my eyes when I'm on certain websites, and I try to not read the ads. I mean, it kind of bugs me that those ads are so in your face now on Facebook. They come up in the context of your news feed, and that's cool. You know, they have to make money. Obviously, they're supported by advertising, but they're also supported by the NSA. So, as that tweet from Max Keiser stated the other day, that a source told him that 30% of their revenues come from the NSA. So this is just something to be aware of. Facebook tests software to track your cursor on screen. And if you happen to be an advertiser, I hope you're aware that I think things are set up on Facebook so that people click things that they're not actually interested in. I noticed on my iPhone, as I was scrolling through my news feed, that the ads tend to stall out as I'm scrolling, and it'll stop on an ad, and the ad will stop in such a place as to require for me to move my screen, that the place where I think most people probably tend to put their finger to move the screen, that's where the button is to click for the ad. And if those people are paying for clicks, they're getting ripped off. So I'd be very cautious about paying for advertising on some of these, Google, Facebook. If you're paying for clicks, I wouldn't trust that, because they set it up so that you click on things unintentionally. I believe. That seems to be my experience, and I just float that out there for your consideration. And here is this issue of Ted Cruz. He is evidently arguing that an international treaty should not trump the Constitution. And we hear that, about Agenda 21, and if there is, and if the U.S. signs an international arms agreement, that international agreement will trump the Constitution. Well, Ted Cruz is kind of saying, why? And it's unclear. I mean, why would that be the case, right? So this is an ongoing struggle, evidently. Obama's Justice Department argues before Supremes, international treaties trump Constitution. So obviously this makes things very convenient for the globalists if indeed international treaties trump the Constitution. But the Constitution is the law of the land. Nothing should, I mean, are we a sovereign nation or are we not a sovereign nation? And if we are a sovereign nation, then no. International treaties do not trump our law. From Red Ice Creations, an article, Mind Control, DARPA works on reading brains in real time. This is just the extent to which the government is going to effectively steal our lives, steal our essence. And it begins with privacy. We might call it privacy, but the reality is they want to possess us. They want to own human creativity, human potential, and ultimately our souls. I mean, that you see the dark agenda of the devil behind, or what we call the devil. There are a lot of names behind this push to own us. And kind of along that line, our IAA warns against Bitcoin, the Pirate Bay, in latest notorious websites list. I believe I mentioned this the other day. This is the recording industry, and the other one is the motion picture industry. They are pushing hard to end the Pirate Bay and some of the other torrent sites now and sharing sites. Why would they be against Bitcoin? Well, they're against Bitcoin because these sites allow for anonymous donations through Bitcoin. So again, this is a privacy issue, but it really goes far beyond being a privacy issue, because the question is, who owns the brain trust of humanity? Who owns folk tales? Who owns the fruit of creativity? Who owns art? And this really cuts to the heart of a lot of the issues of, are we free people? Do we belong to ourselves, or are we chattel? Do we have an owner? Do we have a master? Are we serfs on some plantation? Actually, I know that I've mentioned things about that before, but I found Max Keiser entertaining on InfoWars yesterday. But Max Keiser is kind of taking this push from RIAA and MPAA personally. I think probably because of Bitcoin, and it's not exactly clear what the relationship is between Max Keiser and Bitcoin. But Alex Jones has suggested that Max Keiser was one of the founders and innovators that produced Bitcoin. He may be, who knows? But Max just made some tremendous points about owning the human brain trust, about how the fairy tales have been purchased by Disney and now they're owned by Disney. And I was thinking how to communicate this, because I know there are a lot of well-meaning people who are really opposed to what they consider stealing copyrighted materials and downloading music files and things like that. So here's ultimately this is where it is, because copyright law has been mangled. I appreciate if somebody, an artist, is actually receiving the benefit. First of all, with the record companies, the recording industry, it's really not the artists who profit. And I won't get into that whole issue because I've discussed it before, and it's a big, kind of a hot button for me, how artists are abused and exploited. But I was thinking, how do I communicate this? And it's like this, especially Disney owning the fairy tales. What would it be like if, say, the Native Americans have an oral tradition of history? They believed that writing was vain and led to evil. So they would tell stories, and their history was in just storytelling. So what if this is like what the RIAA and the MPAA are trying to do? Is as if the Native Americans who would sit around their campfires and tell their stories would have to give some kind of tribute, or just pay effectively somebody, whoever had written, well, no, not written, whoever had created those stories. It's like as if, the people who went, before there was television, people used to, lay on the ground at night and look at the stars and make up stories. So the stories that were made up about the constellations, you would have to pay if you told your kids those stories. No, it's just fundamentally wrong. It's fundamentally wrong to try to own humanity and the effects of human creativity. And I fully believe that's what some of these companies are trying to do, Sony and some of the others. As my husband has pointed out, Sony stands for Standard Oil New York. They were trying to come up with a name, and that's the name they came up with. So that's who Sony is. Megalomaniacs trying to own everything, swallow everything up like a black star. Here is an article from the Huffington Post. Canadians seek Dick Cheney's arrest for war crimes during upcoming visit. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? That would be amazing. And we are believing that things like this are going to happen. And certainly Dick Cheney has committed war crimes, and I think that he is a person that many, many people would like to see arrested for what he has done against humanity. And I'll just mention, obviously, today is Halloween, and I don't mean to be a buzzkill, but I wanted to kind of remind people what the origins of Halloween are. The origin of Halloween traditions, stuff they don't want you to know. And this little video is actually pretty mild. This website is the Financial Armageddon. This video doesn't really get into some of the really dark traditions, but it's just a kind of a gentle reminder of, hey, there is history behind this, long history, and most of it is not really something that I would want to pass on to my children, but that how you live your life is totally up to you, as long as you do no harm. But if you do enjoy observing Halloween and you like to get scared for fun, I have a couple of film suggestions from which you can also learn. Obviously, The Shining, and it is a standard horror film. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, which is one reason I bring it up today. Stanley Kubrick was just an incredibly interesting man. It seems obvious to me that he wanted to expose the elite. And there are a lot of references to the elite in The Shining. I think that Stephen King wanted to expose the elite too. debauchery that has gone on at the hotel in the past. And there are a lot of echoes in this story, a lot of meanings, both from the point of view of Stanley Kubrick and the point of view of Stephen King. I won't get into all that. But we, a few weeks ago, watched an interesting documentary on the making of The Shining. It's called Room 237. And as this blurb on IMDb says, an exploration of various interpretations of Stanley Kubrick's horror film, The Shining. Now, this video doesn't really get into the elite or the debauchery, the lifestyle of the people who had visited the hotel. It doesn't really get into a whole lot into the idea of claiming people's souls, which I think is a real strong aspect of the film. But one thing it does get into that is really interesting is The Shining was an expression to some extent of Stanley Kubrick's anger at having allegedly, of course, produced the moon landing. And this is a great conspiracy fair. Maybe doesn't really impact upon that much, but it's really interesting stuff. And there are some very dramatic references that are pointed out in Room 237. The references are in The Shining to the moon landing, and some really interesting scenes here and interesting perspectives. It's kind of fun if you don't really want to watch The Shining and go through that emotional trauma, but you want a little something spicy. This might be fun for you. And another amazing Kubrick film, Eyes Wide Shut. Very obviously about the elite, and I'm sure that doesn't elude you. If you've ever seen it, I'm not recommending it if you haven't. It is intense. Not for everybody. And our good news for the day. Jury finds sheriff not guilty of misconduct. So this is truly great news. Really an affirmation of Second Amendment rights. Thank you for joining us for today's news. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Hoping that you will love one another, take care, and insist on liberty.